loneliness no one warns you about. Not the loneliness of being alone, not the loneliness of having no one around, but the loneliness of growing while everyone around you stays the same. You changed, you did the work, you faced things most people spend their entire lives avoiding. And somewhere in that process, something shifted. You saw things differently. You wanted different things. You became someone different. And the people who knew you before, they don't know what to do with who you are now. This channel is for the man who stayed strong when no one noticed, the man who carried responsibility quietly and slowly disappeared. Here, strength is questioned, silence is exposed, and the cost of being the strong one is finally spoken out loud. Growing is the only thing no one can do for you, and that's exactly why they don't understand it. You notice it first in conversations. The topics that used to engage you feel hollow. The jokes that used to make you laugh feel empty. The complaints that used to feel relatable now feel like noise. You sit in rooms full of people you've known for years and feel more alone than you've ever felt in actual solitude. And you try to bridge the gap. You bring up the things you're thinking about, the questions you're sitting with, the things you've realized, and you watch their eyes glaze over. Or worse, you watch them get uncomfortable, like your growth is an accusation, like becoming more is an implicit criticism of staying the same. So, you learn to translate yourself, to make yourself smaller in conversations, to leave out the parts of you that have changed, to perform a version of yourself that fits the spaces you've already outgrown. And that performance is exhausting because you're not hiding weakness, you're hiding growth. And hiding growth feels like betraying yourself. Growing is lonely because it's fundamentally internal. No one can see what's happening inside you.
No one witnesses the moment you finally understand something you've been wrestling with for years. No one sees you at 3 in the morning confronting something about yourself you'd been avoiding. No one is there when you decide, quietly and completely, to become something different. They only see the before and the after. And the gap between those 2 points looks from the outside like you changed, like you became difficult, like you became distant, like something went wrong. But nothing went wrong. Something went right. You grew. Growing is lonely because the people who love you want the version of you they already know. Not because they're selfish, but because that version felt safe, predictable, familiar. The new version requires them to update their understanding of who you are. And updating is work. And most people won't do that work. So they resist the new version. They reference who you used to be. They say things like you've changed, as if change is betrayal. They try to pull you back into old patterns, old conversations, old versions of yourself that fit their image of who you are. And sometimes, out of love for them, you go back. You perform the old version. You pretend the growth didn't happen. And every time you do, something inside you gets a little smaller. Growing is lonely because no one can give you what growth requires. No one can do your inner work for you. No one can face your fears on your behalf. No one can make peace with your past in your place. No one can sit with your discomfort until it transforms into understanding. Every moment of genuine growth happens in a space no one else can access, the inside of your own experience. And that fundamental inaccessibility, that privacy of transformation, that's the loneliness of growing that no one talks about. You can have people around you, people who love you, people who support you, but they cannot enter the room where your actual growth happens. That room only has one occupant.
And the door only opens from the inside. Growing is lonely because it requires leaving things behind. Not dramatically, not cruelly, but inevitably. You leave behind ways of thinking that no longer serve you. You leave behind relationships that require you to be less than you are. You leave behind versions of yourself that were built for survival, not for living. And here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Some people will never grow, and that includes people you love. Not because they can't, but because they won't. They've chosen comfort over growth. They've chosen familiar over better. They've chosen to stay who they are because changing feels too hard. And you have to make peace with the fact that not everyone is meant to come with you. And every leaving feels like loss, even when it's the right thing. Even when you know with complete clarity that staying would be worse. The leaving still hurts, and you have to do it alone. Because the people you're leaving don't understand why you're leaving. And explaining it sounds like criticism. And criticism breaks things you're not ready to break yet. So you carry it silently. The grief of growing, the mourning of who you were, the strange sadness of becoming more while losing what you had. Growing is lonely because the path forward isn't visible. When you're in the middle of genuine transformation, you don't have a map. You don't know exactly what you're becoming. You only know that you can't go back to what you were. And forward is uncertain. So you move through uncertainty alone, making decisions you can't fully explain, following intuitions you can't fully justify, trusting a process you can't fully see. And everyone around you wants certainty. They want you to explain where you're going. They want guarantees. They want the path to make sense. But growth doesn't make sense while you're in it. It only makes sense afterward. And you have to be willing to not make sense for a while.
And being willing to not make sense alone, in the middle of transformation, that's one of the loneliest things a person can do. Growing is lonely because most people stopped growing a long time ago. Not because they can't, but because they decided comfort was worth more than growth. They found a level of existence that was tolerable, and they stopped pushing past it. And when they encounter someone who hasn't stopped, someone who keeps pushing, keeps questioning, keeps transforming, it makes them uncomfortable. Because your continued growth implicitly asks the question they've been avoiding: what if I stop too soon? So they don't celebrate your growth, they pathologize it. You're restless, you're never satisfied, you're always looking for something. As if contentment with mediocrity is wisdom and refusal to stop growing is a flaw. But you know what it actually is. It's the only thing that makes you feel alive. Here's what they don't understand and can never understand until they experience it themselves. Growing doesn't get less lonely, but your relationship with the loneliness changes. In the beginning, the loneliness of growth feels like punishment, like something is wrong with you, like you're doing it wrong, like everyone else figured out how to be content and you missed that lesson. But over time, if you keep going, the loneliness transforms. It stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like the natural condition of someone moving forward. It stops feeling like something to escape and starts feeling like evidence you're on the right path. Because if growth were comfortable, everyone would do it. If transformation were easy, no one would stay stuck. The loneliness isn't a sign you're doing it wrong, it's a sign you're doing it at all. The men who've grown the most are often the most comfortable with solitude, not because they don't want connection,
but because they've learned that the deepest growth happens in exactly the space where no one else can go. And they've made peace with that. They've stopped waiting for someone to understand the journey before they take it. They've stopped explaining themselves to people who aren't on the path. They've stopped needing permission to become. They just grow. Quietly, persistently, alone. And then one day, not all at once, but gradually, they find others who are also growing. Not many, but enough. People who understand the loneliness, not because you explained it, but because they lived it too. People who don't need you to be who you were, because they're not who they were either. And in those rare connections, something extraordinary happens. You're not alone in your growth. Not because someone is doing it for you, but because someone else is doing it alongside you, in their own interior room, on their own invisible path. And that parallel solitude, that shared experience of growing alone together, that's the only real community available to people who refuse to stop becoming. Growing is lonely. It's the only thing no one can do for you. That's why they don't understand it. And that's exactly why you can't.